Hey guys, this is Dan from LearningCameras.com, and here we've got the brand new Nikon D5300. And this is really a nice new camera from Nikon, and we're just going to kind of explore this a little bit before we get to the full review, just to give you an early look at some of the features of this camera. So basically, this is the brand new camera from Nikon. It's a 24 megapixel camera. It really has a host of new features, brings Wi-Fi into it, really a good solid camera. So when you first pull this out of the box, one of the big things is this screen. It actually takes up the entire spot of the bottom of this camera as well, so it's a big flip out screen. Even though the actual screen size is just a little bit smaller than what you would think it would be, it is still a good size screen and very nice and clear. And you're going to be greeted by this kind of futuristic type menu setup. You can go to the more traditional menu setup for taking a look at your settings. So, but basically this gives you all of your settings in a quick outlook. Now it's not touchscreen like what we see on some of the Canon models, so you're going to have to go through the settings like the old-fashioned way. Now, one thing I will say is that Nikon is very big on turning off these screens. Even if you turn on the screen, as soon as you hit the shutter, it automatically turns off. So whereas a lot of Canon cameras, you can keep the screen on. This is definitely something that Nikon does not do. So that's one thing on there. Now the dial mode is up on the top of this camera, and it is very easy to use, very easy to turn, laid out pretty well. I will say that there's a lot of stuff going on the dial. It's very full, but it's pretty easy to get where you need to go. No matter where that is. So you can very quickly and easily get to your manual modes and switch over. Now there's no lock on this like what we've seen from some cameras, and I am absolutely fine with that because I've never accidentally hit anything from it, and the lock is kind of annoying to me. Now I will say the live view is activated through this button right here. Now when you're changing with your right hand, it's actually pretty easy to accidentally hit that live view switch from that. So I will say that that's something that you have to keep in mind. It's a quick switch out of live view, but that is something that I did accidentally hit quite a few times. Now, as far as buttons on there, you're not going to see a whole lot on the back of the camera, which is a little bit of a shame because for beginners starting out, you got to learn the camera very quickly to learn where all the buttons and functions are. All of your shooting controls are up here. You do have your exposure compensation that'll also switch between the controlling the shutter speed and the aperture dial with this dial. This dial is very firm, so it gives a resounding click. However, it's just very firm and very difficult to move. However, you're not going to accidentally hit it as well, which is maybe what people experienced a little bit more, and that's why Nikon went with that on that. So you do have your menu controls right here, and basically most of your menu controls over on the back right there. Now on this side, you do have quite a bit of shooting controls on this side of the camera, which is their flash your function button, which can be set to a variety of things from white balance, ISO, and a couple others. And then kind of buried down at the bottom here, you do have the ability to adjust your timers and some of your other shooting mode settings into things like your fast high speed mode, your single shot mode, your slower shooting high speed mode, and a couple other settings in there. They do have a quiet mode as well. It's not very quiet. It's it's a little quieter than the standard mode, but not by much at all. So don't confuse this with a true quiet silent mode at all. It's a very noisy camera. Also, adding to the noise is that all of the buttons are very clicky and very tough to press, and that's going to add to that noise level as well. So that's something else that I did notice. Now, getting through some of the menus. The menu is very typical of Nikon, basically the same as everything we've seen before, nothing wrong with it. It's not quite as well laid out as far as descriptions go. They don't really tell you what's going on, so they just give you these icons here, and that's all you have to let you know what's going on with all of these settings. Now you do get to a couple like what's auto info display. It doesn't tell me. If I click on it, it just there's plenty of room for a description of what this is, and it doesn't tell you. So you're going to find that a lot of beginners on this are going to be consulting their manuals to find out what some of these settings do. And that's the only unfortunate thing, is that you have so much room on the screen and yet so few controls on that. So basically our shooting modes are pretty good to activate, and we do have this I button here, which gives you quick access to those controls, so you don't have to go through any of your menu settings to go access quickly some of those controls on there. And I mean, overall, the performance of the camera is going to be very, very nice. You do have your stereo microphone on here. And so let's take a look at some shooting. Here's a big thing that I'm going to say with Nikon, is if you go into the live view, your camera basically functions in full auto now. Even if I change my exposure by changing my my shutter speed, if I go to change my aperture, which you can theoretically do, it's changing them in your exposure, so your exposure is going to be different. However, it is not actually changing them for the screen preview, so you have no idea what your shot is going to be. However, when you take it, it's going to be a very different shot maybe than you had imagined, because here's the shot I'm going to take, and so you don't get the exact preview of what your shot is going to look like on this, and that's the only negative on that. So, let me turn my exposure, and I'm going to knock my, what do I have programmed to that right now? I think I have my function button controlled, my ISO. And so we'll knock that down to something really low, and then we'll take a picture. And you're going to see we have a completely black screen on that. But however, we were seeing this nice preview of what we were getting. So, that's a negative thing. Now, for shooting videos, videos are going to shoot basically in full auto. There is no control over that at all. If I'm recording my video, I can't change any of these settings. They don't do anything. You can change them all day long. They don't do anything. And if you play back that video, there is no change in what your video has recorded. So it's basically shooting in kind of an auto mode inside of that video. Now, I will say that that's unfortunate, because looking in these camera settings as well, I don't remember exactly where it is, but inside the video controls, it does have 60 frames a second at 1080p progressive, which is huge for slow motion. However, getting control of your shutter during those, it would be great, because depending on what you're doing, your shutter speed might be out of control, and it would be nice to be able to control what that does. So that's kind of a quick look at this camera, really fast. You do have your single SD card slot on there. It does use the smaller battery. Overall, the grip is very nice. The feel of the camera is okay. I mean, this is a cheaper plastic body, so we're gonna deal with that, and it is what it is. But it's not bad at all. Now, another thing that's really nice is your autofocus system. So you're gonna get tons of points on this, and I can't show you right now, but you get a ton of autofocus points for a camera of this caliber, way more than you're used to with your typical nine focus points. So that's nice to see from Nikon. They're really upping their game when it comes to the focus system in this. And in fact, it's the same focus system as you're going to see in their upper level cameras, like the Nikon D610, for example. So very good autofocus system, very good camera. We're going to take it out to the field, get some real life pictures, shoot some awesome cars with this in the coming days. So this is kind of our first look to give you some first impressions, and then stay tuned, because we'll have the full review out. Some raw files will be posted on our website at learningcameras.com, and you'll be able to take a real awesome look at the actual camera. We're also going to post the actual raw files so you can download them and play with them yourself. So we don't want you to miss out on that at all. Now, I will be shooting this with Nikon's brand new lens. It's an 18-35 f3.5 to f4.5 lens. This is made for high resolution cameras, so it's a very, very, very sharp lens, and we'll be testing it out brand new from Nikon. So it's kind of a double on that one. Now, as far as this lens goes, it's also a little plastic, especially for being such an expensive lens. However, and it is a very high aperture on that 3.5 to 4.5, when we could get something like a Sigma 18-35 that's an f1.8 lens. So I don't really see a lot of purpose in buying this lens. However, it's a great testing lens because it's extremely sharp and made by Nikon. So we'll take this camera into the field and see what we got.